Hello, I'm just Juli Jack. I look like a dirty pimple and I'm just a stupid little human trying my best. Oh my god, let's go. You don't know how many times I practiced that. I like how I acted like I took a lot of tries. It was like my fourth try. Okay. Sorry, I'm just talented. Anyway. If you were wondering whether or not this is the same day because the setup looked exactly the same, I'm using the same mug, but I'm just wearing a different sweater, mind your business. Today we're talking about my favorite films. I have a lot of favorite movies. My top 3 favorite films are in order. All the other ones below it are in no particular order because I can't decide. I love them. When you love things, you just love them. You don't ask to be putting them in ranks. You just love on them. Like children. Unless you hate them. And some people do. And that is valid. But it's not a personality trait, so stop. But when I was a child, this was my favorite film. Now you might be thinking, oh my god, it's like the SpongeBob movie or something. No. It is grade A cinema and that's how I knew I was meant to be a filmmaker as a child, because I loved a critically acclaimed film that was just so good. Nobody can mess with it. And yes, I am talking about School of Rock. School of Rock is one of the greatest movies ever made. If anybody tells you different, do not hang out with that person. They are an assassin because they don't have a soul. School of Rock is one of the best movies ever made. You can't convince me otherwise. It's got Jack Black, a comedy king. Comedy king. Miranda Cosgrove.
Yes, I do.
Got that one guy who ended up stealing guitars when he was older. The Legend of the Rent was way hardcore, am I right? That blonde drummer who I had a fat crush on at 4 years old. Yes, it did. And yes, I did.
Eddie, what do you like to do?
I don't know. Burn stuff.
The music.
It's called the music.
And introduced me to some of the best artists in the world. I watched School of Rock when I was about 4 years old, and it was mind-blowing. And it still is to this day. It's one of those films that if people talk any kind of trash on, I will kill them. Okay, I won't kill them. If you haven't seen School of Rock, I highly recommend it. It's about this guy named Dewey Finn. He just wants to rock, man. And I feel it. I feel it hardcore. The Legend of the Rent was way hardcore. Thought of the film, and it played in my mind. That's how much I like School of Rock. Please watch. For a long time, when people ask me what my favorite movie was, I said School of Rock. Sometimes I probably will say School of Rock, just because I'll panic and be like, School of Rock. Another film is Stand By Me. When I tell you that this was written by Stephen King, you might think, it's like a Shining, It, Misery, very dark film, or dark story in general. It's actually not. At least the film isn't. I haven't read the book. It's a book called The Body. And what's crazy is that it's nostalgic for everyone. It's not a coming-of-age film. Don't get it twisted. It's not a coming-of-age film. But it is childhood in movie form. It doesn't matter when you grew up. You know how like Stranger Things is nostalgia, but it's nostalgic for people who grew up in the 80s? Everybody who was born in the 80s feels like that natural, like, oh my god, it reminds me of like when I grew up, blah, 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 blah. That's great for you, Susan. Stand By Me does that for everyone. So it has River Phoenix in it. His performance is so well, along with the other 3 boys. Corey Feldman plays one of the little boys in this. Not little, but like preteen age. It surrounds them trying to go after this dead body. The whole point of the story is their journey getting to the body, finding the body, coming back. Great story writing. That is my thing. Being a writer, I love good writing, and it kills me because I feel like a lot of the movies and TV shows today have a lot of great writing elements, but just loving, like, not feeling like there's a flaw at all in the writing. Like, I get it, like, we're humans, right? There's gonna be some, or things that I might not like, but making a good quality story isn't that hard. It really isn't. There are books on this stuff. People learn this over a couple of years. It's not, everybody has a different pace, and I get it. You know, some people just whatever. But I feel like that's why we have a lot of movies based off books, because people aren't focusing in on the story. And I think when it goes back to everything, goes back to your story. Like, yes, you need, don't get me wrong, like if you don't have good actors, your story won't go well in your film or whatever. And all of these roles matter. But story, I feel like, is just not getting a lot of light in modern times. So I highly recommend something like Stand By Me. I mean, I know it's based off a book by a writer who's very, very talented. Stephen King. I just want to apologize to Stephen King with the education system in the US, because we are not teaching your material in class. Hand in my heart, don't know why we're doing that. Or excuse me, why we're not doing that. I think Stephen King should be taught in schools. I think Stephen King is probably one of the best writers of our time, if not the best. Yes, I said it. I like Stephen King that much. And I think he's a literary and storytelling genius. I really do. And I just love. Is great story-wise. So if you're a writer too, it's definitely a good way of showing you how to develop characters, because each boy feels similar, so you can kind of understand why they're friends, but they definitely have their own quirks and traits and different things. They're very well written and they're very well portrayed. I'm very impressed by all four of the young boys that play in this film. My next favorite movie is This Is Where I Leave You, a film that is very forgettable. And it's forgettable because the title sucks. The title in and of itself is not bad. This Is Where I Leave You actually would compel me to read that book, watch that movie. When we're learning about writing for film, especially if you've read Save the Cat, shout out to Save the Cat. Obviously, there are no rules to screenwriting. There are no rules to any kind of writing. My college poetry teacher would say otherwise, but I'm going to argue that there really are no rules to writing. People like to tell you this, people like to tell you that, but all of it are rules that we decided as a society is how writing needs to be. At the end of the day, free write is a thing. I think that's the most authentic writing. Yes, later you can edit it to fit a specific format, but we don't write in format. With that being said, this title is fine. However, for going by the Save the Cat rules, it's terrible, because This Is Where I Leave You doesn't really tie in with anything about the story. It doesn't tell us where we're going, what's happening, anything like that. But I do like the title, even if it's not fantastic by Save the Cat standards. This film features a lot of, and it's not like I have a crush on him. No, I have no crush, no feelings toward Jason Bateman, but I would die for him. I don't know why. So Jason Bateman's in this. He plays the main character, of course. And we have Tina Fey, Jane Fonda, Adam Driver. About family dynamics, it's great about so that's my thing. I love great story writing, so I love characters. If you don't have a good character, why am I watching? But if no one cares about your character, no one's gonna care. No one's gonna care that you have a great plot, because no one cares about the stakes. It may not be one of your favorite films by the end, and no harsh feelings if it's not, but I think you will enjoy it. Next is Thelma and Louise, one of my favorite movies because it's very well written. Again, I love a well written story, and it's centered around two female protagonists, which we definitely need more of. And I'm not talking like more female protagonists, like give me an old male dominated franchise and then throw in a female in there and call it G.I. Jane and suddenly it's great. No disrespect to G.I. Jane, I've never seen it. Like, I don't mean like Ghostbusters, but make a female. I don't mean like Tomb Raider, but make it female. I don't mean like Ocean's 11, but make it female. No disrespect to Ocean's 8. I actually did enjoy that film. I don't think it was fantastic, but I liked it. Give me an authentic, original story that has a female protagonist. Is that so hard? Hello, Hollywood? Is that so hard? It came out in 1991, and it is directed by Ridley Scott. Thelma and Louise has Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon, some of my two favorite people in the world who I've never met. It's a buddy film. It's a buddy film with two women, and it's great. A lot of buddy films don't explore the relationships between female friendships, and if they do, it's always like this weird catty thing, and I get it, but women aren't all inherently evil, and we do have female friends. Sometimes it's really sweet and nice and like having a sister, and that's what Thelma and Louise is about. Next movie is Perfume, the story of a murderer. When I tell you this film is slept on. It came out in 2006. I don't know how popular this film was when it first came out. I was 6. The fact that we're not talking about this film in filmmaking circles is a travesty. The editing style, the cinematography, the directing, it's all beautiful. It's beautiful, which is crazy because it's a story about a murderer. It's about this guy who kills people but is obsessed with smells and has a higher sense of smell, which I always thought was interesting because I feel like whenever you tell people like, oh, what's one sense you would get rid of if you had to get rid of one, everyone's always like, oh, smell, what do I need to do? Who cares about smell? Not realizing how much it's tied to taste. But regardless, even if it wasn't, like, smell is very interesting sense. And the fact that I like when things that people just kind of overlook are heightened in art, and the sense of smell is definitely a key component. It's a great story. There are a little bit of weird parts. There's a part at the end that shocked me. You'll be watching it and towards the end you'll be like, maybe it's this part, maybe it's this part. Then you'll be like, oh, it's that part. That's the part where she's shocked. That's the part. Watch it once. I don't think you will be unsatisfied. I think you will have gotten something from it, if not just appreciated how beautiful it is. It's so beautifully made. I don't think there's any problems with it at all. There's nothing I would change about it. There's nothing I would, even when I finished it, I was like, they should make someone remake this so that we can watch it, like, so that it will get more hype, basically. And then I was like, no, because this doesn't need a remake. This is already perfect. And that's why no one has touched this. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. So this was nominated for an Oscar in 2018 Oscar. Frances McDormand is the main character. And first of all, Frances McDormand does not get enough credit. She is a fantastic actress. She is in one of my top 3 favorite films that I will get into later, but she is just so good, and she slept on it. It makes me mad. Like, she's so good. Her daughter gets murdered in this film. It's a case that she wants. I don't think any parent can have a child die before them and be whole at that point on. Like, that sounds so awful, but just like all of, like, I don't know what it's like to be a parent. I'm not a parent, but from the way that it's been described to me, that relationship with your child when you're a parent, the justice for the child when they're murdered or sexually assaulted or anything like that, anything that awful, I think, is the least you can do for the parent. Like, the absolute least is finding justice for that victim. Because, like, even if they're hurt in that way or they're killed or taken away from them, like, that is so sad to me, and they will never be the same after that. Like, they just won't, because that's their baby, and the only person who is allowed to be angry at the world when that happens is the parent, because that's, I mean, like, I'm not saying like, oh, if you lose your girlfriend or whatever, you can't be upset. Don't get me wrong, like, you can be, but like, no one feels like that parent feels. I think Frances McDormand plays that 100%. But she plays it like a mom on a mission. Like, I need this freaking justice. She's, like, not getting it. Sam Rockwell's in this. He plays a phenomenal role. Love this character. Woody Harrelson's also in this. You have to be mentally prepared to go into a film like that because you get all the negative emotions that come with a case that severe where a young woman dies like that. So I talked about this one a little bit earlier. The Lovely Bones. It stars Saoirse Ronan. A lot of people didn't really like this film because they said the story was like meh, but the cinematography was like wow. And it is directed by Peter Jackson, and yes, I have a special place in my heart for Peter Jackson. He's one of my favorite directors of all time. He's just good, man. He does this weird, like, fantasy, fantastical kind of directing with one of the films I watched as a child where I was like, whoa, films can be this good. I want to say I was about 11. Story of a young girl who was missing during the 70s. What happened to her and how it happened to her. First of all, it's just a beautiful film. Like, the cinematography, the editing is wow. The very CGI'd world is wow. Like, it's all wow. It's also probably Mark Wahlberg's best performance.
What? No.
I will say, though, I recently found out that Ryan Gosling was supposed to be in the role, but he got super fat for the role on purpose because that's how he saw the character, and Peter Jackson was like, nah, fam, and fired him. We'll just make do with what we have. And honestly, I think Mark Wahlberg does pretty good. He does pretty good in this role. I think it is his best role. My God, I can't believe I forgot my king, Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci is my favorite actor. I know I said I would die for Christoph Waltz. I know I said I would die for Jason Bateman. I know I mentioned Willem Dafoe and Brad Pitt, but Stanley Tucci is my favorite actor of all time. Don't care what anybody says. Just the range on that man. Stanley Tucci could star in a film all by himself and play every single role, and he would nail them perfectly. I'm one of those people that's almost like anti-trailer, because you know how many times I've like just started a movie, just start it. Like don't even hear anything about the premise. I'm just gonna recommend a movie to you, and you just watch it. I know that sounds psycho, and you're like, what if I hate it? There's so many films where it's like, if you just did that, you would be blown away. And I feel like The Lovely Bones is like that. Like, I don't want to give... If you watch the trailer, it would probably give you more information than I'm giving you. But I don't want to give you too much because I just want you to watch it. Like don't even, like, spoil it by watching a trailer. Just watch the film. Yeah. Don't waste great storytelling on a trailer because you will be blown away by the way the story introduces you to it through the film. And I think The Lovely Bones is like that. Like, so I'm not going to reveal too much, but basically Stanley Tucci plays the kidnapper. He plays the bad guy. He does it so well. And honestly, being 11 years old, I didn't realize that was Stanley Tucci until later. And then I watched it again a couple years later. I'm still fairly young, but then I knew it was Stanley Tucci, and I was like, wow, this man is so talented. Like, I would probably give my left kidney to work with Stanley Tucci. I'd probably give both if I could survive without both, but I know you can't, but just thought I would mention that. I've been filming for so long, it's going to be so hard to edit. Oh well. Hey guys, editing Juliana here. This did take a really long time to edit, and unfortunately I had to cut out a lot of my favorite films because I had simply too many and I talked for way too long. So if you would like to see the full list, let me know. You can also check my letterboxd. Thanks. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Oh my god. Perks of Being a Wallflower. Like, I watch this whenever I'm sad in life, whenever I feel like no one understands me, whenever I feel like a Charlie, I watch this movie. I think it's very different from its book. It's actually directed by the author of the book, Stephen Chbosky. I hope I said that right. I'm not gonna lie. It's 2014 Tumblr. You know, We Are Infinite. Heroes by David Bowie plays while you are in the car with the people that you love. And it's all like... But it doesn't over-romanticize this era in a person's life. Like, that's something that I can't stand, is when we're talking about, like, teenagers and, like, trying to understand the coming of age and what we're doing with our lives. They always romanticize it to the point where that people get like FOMO. It stars Logan Lerman in one of his best roles. Well, Fury's probably his best role, but in one of his best roles. And we have Emma Watson and Ezra Miller. What a trio. What a cast already. It has a handful of other well-known actors in it. Paul Rudd plays his teacher. Mae Whitman. I love her. She's great. If you're a writer, you will identify with Charlie so much. If you can't identify with Charlie, I think you can definitely identify with someone in this film. Because it kind of just shows how human they all are, how people have wronged them, how they've wronged themselves, how we just struggle with being little humans and being hurt. It can be reassuring at times. Juno was ahead of its time. It really was. Juno is another Jason Bateman film. Juno has Michael Cera, Elliot Page, and Allison Janney, J.K. Simmons. I keep calling everything good. I keep saying, like, and I like it, and it's a good film. Like, duh. It was made in 2007. It was written by one of my favorite screenwriters of all time, Diablo Cody. Yes, Diablo Cody, who went from a stripper to a screenwriter. Go, girl. Go. Get that bank. Diablo Cody there are poets that play with the language. There are screenwriters who play with dialogue. Like, that's just what it is. Like, she plays with dialogue. She experiments with different things. She writes in a way that is her own. And I have mad respect for that. I really look up to her as a screenwriter because she writes Juno in such a sophisticated way. You can tell that her sophistication, if it's not completely authentic, it's because she's trying to bullshit you, because she's trying to get by as a teenage girl who doesn't really know what she's doing. And I feel that. And I think that is, again, expressed through the dialogue by Diablo Cody and the performance by Elliot Page. Oh, the sprinklers came on. I got so scared. I was like, who's there? If you don't know, which how could you not know? But if you don't know, it's okay. Juno is about teenage pregnancy, and it doesn't portray teenage pregnancy like some of other types of media were portraying teenage pregnancy in 2007 or even now. It really humanizes Juno in a way that I didn't even realize pregnant teenagers needed to be. You don't realize how much they're kind of ostracized by society or looked down upon. And this in no way is me advocating for teenage pregnancy, but also I feel like it explores how challenging it is for Juno to like be pregnant and do all this stuff, but it doesn't come off as preachy, which I think is the best kind of story to tell, because I can totally understand if you don't want your kid watching this, but like if your kid did watch this, your young teenager, they would get the memo. Like, hey, you know, maybe teenage pregnancy isn't all that it's cracked up to be. I think that a lot can be learned as a filmmaker from this, whether it's screenwriting, whether it's cinematography, whether it's directing, whether it's acting, can all be dissected in a way that will inform you about how to progress as a filmmaker. Please go watch it. It ain't no Etch-a-Sketch. This is one doodle that can't be undid, home skillet. That's how talented Diablo Cody is. And the next one is 12 Angry Men. I know. It sounds pretentious as hell. I'm supposed to go to bed in 30 minutes. It is a film from, I believe, the 50s. It is black and white. I know. I mean, you'll always get black and white films from any filmmaker. Anybody who loves cinema will always tell you, oh my god, Casablanca or whatever. I haven't seen Casablanca, so I'm not talking trash. This was one of the films that I put on when I was flipping through the channels on a Sunday afternoon. And I love me a black and white film on a Sunday afternoon. For the most part, this entire film takes place in one room. A lot of people think that's easy and are like, oh, like I have to make a short film, but I have a small budget. I'm just going to use one room or a house and it'll be fine. You know how hard it is to keep an audience engaged in one room? That's a lot. That's hard on an audience. Film is a form of escapism, and we like to go to other places in our films. The fact that you're able to pull off dialogue this strong to the point where we don't ever need to leave the room, fantastic. I'm so impressed. This film is something that I essentially wish I could write one day. It's about a jury who has been sent to go decide a verdict about whether or not the man who is being charged for first-degree murder should be given the death penalty. And it's just the way that they're able to go back and forth. And one man's like hell-bent on this young man not getting the death penalty because what if he's innocent? Later, I read an article where it's like the man knows that he's guilty, but he doesn't believe in the death penalty. So he's, which either interpretation of that is fine. I still go by the interpretation of he's saying what if he's innocent, because there is a slight chance that he could be. Either way you view the film, either way you view the character, it's a good ass movie. If you're not into black and white films, I get it. If you're not into one room type of films, I get it. So worth it though. So worth it. It's just a good story. I know I keep saying that, but like good storytelling will always be good, will always be entertaining to some extent. You shouldn't need explosions. You shouldn't need that. If you have good solid characters, having a good solid conflict, that's a story. That, like you don't need anything else. So the fact that it's just done so well, warms my little writer brain. It really does. Now we're getting towards the end. Mona Lisa Smile. Y'all sleeping on Mona Lisa Smile. Mona Lisa Smile stars Julia Roberts, Kirsten Dunst, Julia Stiles, Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it is beautiful. It's the 50s because there's a part where it's New Year's and she goes, it's a new year in 1954. So that's why I know it's in the 50s. It follows Julia Roberts' character, who is a professor. First of all, it's an all women's college, and they accept the smartest women in the nation to go there. So all these women are like hella freaking smart, and a lot of them only want to be wives because that's all they know. And oh my god, talk about women's rights. And I'm not talking about like wearing a vagina on your head, okay? I'm not talking about that. Which, like, if you want to wear a vagina on your head, wear a vagina on your head. It's a free country. I mean, like, the authenticity of like a woman is whatever she wants to be is so amazing. And even if that is a wife, even if that is a mother, even if that's a stay-at-home mom, that's okay, but let her choose. Something that I watched with my mom when I was fairly young, and I think that kind of just goes to show the type of movies my mom was showing me. Like, yeah, get out there. You can do it. You can be it. Go. Personally, think this is one of Julia Roberts' best roles. There's a lot of like drama tied to it, and I don't care what you say. You fall in love with every single character. You stand them. You want an 8-part series on their background, their history, their story, their future, what they're going through, where they are now. They would be dead, Juliana, you're dumb. But like everything. What's their family line like? What is their great daughter doing now? Like, it's my third top favorite film of all time is Zodiac by David Fincher. Yes, I know I said by like he wrote it. he didn't. Zodiac is one of the best films of all time, and it is slept on. Zodiac did something different directing wise, cinematography wise, screenwriting wise. Like, read the screenplay. It's so detailed. It's a work of art all on its own. Originally, Zodiac was supposed to be called Chronicles. I like that more as a screenplay title. Don't know if I love it as a movie title. I don't think Chronicles would have done as well, especially knowing that when people hear the term Zodiac, they know it's more than likely about the Zodiac Killer, which is exactly who it's about. Zodiac Killer was always something that was very interesting to me, especially being an avid lover of California and knowing that whole history behind it. If you're a true crime junkie, you definitely know about it. It basically accounts the real life stories behind the Zodiac, and it pisses me off when people tell me that, oh, well, the Zodiac was never caught, so, he's such an amazing serial killer. First of all, you can't be amazing if you're a serial killer. That is a contradictory statement. Every serial killer needs to eat crow and die. With that being said, if you're a serial killer, please don't come kill me. Would appreciate it if you didn't. Unless it's like a Monday. The Zodiac was... So, okay, let me not get too much into it, because I can go on, like, rambling on about the Zodiac, case. Well, it's not a case, but, like, the cases surrounding the Zodiac, like, all on its own. And then I can make a 45-minute video on this film alone. So let me just, like, calm down for a second. But, like, the Zodiac, in my opinion, wasn't caught, per se, because he died before they could actually catch him. And I don't think there was any hardcore evidence, physical evidence, where they could say, this is the dude. Like, it would stand up in court. But I do think he was technically figured out. And they were pursuing him until their main suspect died. And they literally couldn't pursue him because he was dead. If you need any more clarification on that case, this film is it. There's so many people that actually were part of, like, the interviewing process and stuff that actually were victims of the Zodiac and were injured by him. It's very interesting. And Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, oh my god, I would give my other kidney to work with Jake Gyllenhaal. He's wow. Like, just seeing him he was really good in Prisoners too, and that was definitely another role that made me like, whoa, this guy can act. But, like, this was the first one where I was just like, I just fell in love with his character, and I think it's completely because of his charisma as an actor. I think if any other actor played him, I don't think they would have been able to do him justice. He was just able to portray that almost, like, off look that people get when they're, like, trying to figure out, like, oh my god, I gotta, like, there's people that dedicate their lives to following like one killer to figure him out, and his character did that, and the way that he goes about it is just, like, so like, because I've seen I don't know, I'm just a random person, let me just disclaimer, but I've seen so many interviews about people who dedicate their whole lives to finding someone, have really dedicated their research to this, and Jake Gyllenhaal plays it so well. He plays it, like, on par with how these people are. And it's not like me, like, bashing those people. Like, if that's what you decide to do, that's what you decide to do. But you get so into, like, the details and figuring it out. And it's like this, like, have you ever walked in on someone, like, trying to figure out, like, a very deep puzzle? Or, like, a very difficult, like, mind game? That's what he portrays. And it's so good. Robert Downey Jr. is in this. Mark Ruffalo's in this. It almost plays off like a documentary, the way that they go about it. Not in the way that 8th Grade is, so it's not like a documentary style cinematography, but more the way they go about telling each part of the case. Jaw to the floor, impressed. My second favorite movie of all time is Almost Famous. Almost Famous, I could write 3 papers and a book about. Heartwarming, and I don't know I feel like they took my 70s rock soul and they put it in a movie. I think this movie was snubbed in the box office. I think people didn't know what they were getting into when they decided not to watch it. When they decided not, if I was alive and well, no, I was alive and well, but if I was a teenager when this movie came out, because 2000, I was 1, give me a break. If I was a teenager when this movie came out, I would be all over this, man. The problem, I think, is that once the 2000s hit, people started not caring about the 70s and started caring more about the 80s. That's usually what happens. It's about 20 years out. That's why in the 90s we had shows like That 70s Show. And then we started getting more 80s nostalgia, which is fine, nothing wrong against the 80s, but for somebody who really likes 70s rock and 70s music in general, the disrespect on this movie just hurts my heart. Cameron Crowe, who's the director, I believe he wrote and direct this, and it's partially inspired by his life. It's a 15-year-old. He wants to be a rock journalist, and he decides to follow this band and write about them. And he gets this deal with a very famous magazine company. I won't say who. You gotta watch the movie. Ends up following them to write this article about them, and just all the wacky things that come with being a rocker, but not just like, oh, sex, drugs, and women. Like, no, like, it's something deeper about a love for music. The music alone in this film probably cost them a shit ton of money. It's just like classic after classic after classic. And the ending is my heart. Please watch this movie if you like music. It's also a great coming of age story, which I don't know if it's considered a coming of age movie, but I think it certainly should be. Dun, dun, dun. My favorite film of all time is Dead Poets Society. If you haven't seen Dead Poets Society, please watch it today. Unless it's late, go to bed, like me. Like, I should be going to bed in 10 minutes. But yeah, Dead Poets Society is about these young boys at a boarding school who, you know, are being told to live their life by these adults, and that this is how the world's gonna be, and this is what, you know, their whole life is planned for them. And then this crazy teacher, Mr. Keating, tells them why life can be different, or how life can be different, and how to look at life in all its beauty. Like, it's not, life isn't just work, work, work till you die, contrary to popular belief. And it's not about being well respected by your colleagues. That can be a great aspect, but that's not life. That's not the beauty of life. Is so much more than that. He does it through poetry, which I love poetry, and he does it with writing, and obviously it's poetry because it's Dead Poets Society. But the person who plays the young Mr. Keating is the late Robin Williams, and it's very sad knowing knowing that he passed on, especially the details of how he passed on hurts my heart. And sometimes it's hard to watch that movie because sometimes you'll be watching it and then you'll remember and you're like, oh my god. But he is, I think, in a way, like not everybody, but a lot of people's TV grandpa. I don't know, like, it's so weird because I've never met this man. I don't know anything about him personally, but it's like, oh, like, he does a phenomenal performance as expected in this film. Life is so much more than these stupid little, like, human ideologies we attach to it, like productivity and social status and caring what people think and you know, looking cool or whatever. There's almost like a Sleeping Beauty kind of moment in the film, and by Sleeping Beauty I genuinely mean like kiss somebody while they're asleep. But it's weird, and I'm not encouraging that. And if I could take out any part of that film, it would definitely be that. It feels a little non-consenty, which is never okay. And comment down below if you have watched the film who your favorite character is. I think mine, as much as I like the name Knox Overstreet, I don't think it is him. I think I like Charlie the most. Or, correction, Nuwanda? No. But, like, maybe it is Mr. Keating. The ending will make you cry. The ending always makes you cry. I've seen this film 10,000 times. It makes me cry every single time. I don't know why. Dead Poets Society makes me feel safe. But it also makes me feel seen, and it makes me feel all of the emotion. It's essentially every part of, like, all of the films that I listed before where I like some quality about them, it essentially has that in this film, with the exception of female portrayals. Some people have argued that Mona Lisa's smile is like the female version of Dead Poets Society. I would argue against that. Don't get me wrong, I love Mona Lisa's smile. It is on my favorites list, and I think it is very good, but I think they're very good for different reasons, and I think they have very, very different vibes and themes and stories, and they're trying to convey two very different messages. And it just kind of also shows like how inspiring someone can be in your life, and I think that's always beautiful, because I feel like the times that I feel most impacted by life is when I feel inspired by someone. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's great to be inspired by something in life, but when you're inspired by a person, that's a beautiful relationship. Even if it's not a relationship, that's just a beautiful feeling to be like, wow, human to human. It's like I've showed a part of myself through art, and I'm giving it to you, and you're taking it and making something new out of it that's your own. And we're almost like, I don't know, like we're vibing. I don't know, like I feel that way with this film. And I don't know, maybe I'm just like a sap and I'm like looking too much into it. I love art, I love movies, I love being able to share the human experience with another person, whether it be through film, whether it be through art, whether it be through crocheting. I think that's really fun. If you guys would like to see more videos like this about different of my favorites or different videos about film, there's definitely going to be more videos about film coming up. If that's something that interests you, let me know. If you guys would like to hear more about what it's like to be a student filmmaker, what it's like to watch a film from a student filmmaker's eye, and that's not to like, you know, oh, I'm so great, I'm the ideal student filmmaker, but you know, just like if that's a type of perspective that you don't have or you're not familiar with and you would like to know from me personally, I would love to make that kind of video for you. If you guys would like a more in-depth review or look into these movies, let me know. I might make a video about it. Yeah, and just thank you for watching again. I spent like 3 hours, no lie, recording my favorite movies. I don't know how the hell I'm going to edit this. Again, I want this to be a community where we kind of like share our love for things and art and creativity, and we just like, we vibe, man. So yeah, so again, thank you for watching this video, thank you for tuning in, thank you for supporting me. I am so grateful to it. I cannot tell you how grateful I am. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and interact with this video in any way you can. It is greatly appreciated. Bye guys.